Welcome to the 76 Capital Leadership Series. My name is Wayne Kimmel, and I'm your host and managing partner of 76 Capital. And on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are shaping the overall changing world of sports today. I mean, it is incredible what's happening within the sports business, and we have a great guest today. But real quick, of course, we have to give a shout out to our producer back at the station, James Santor. Follow James at James Santor. Great follow. And of course, you can follow me at Wayne Kimmel across all social media networks, as well as 76 Capital across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and as well as IGTV. You can watch all of our shows on, of course. And we have a great guest today. So let's just get right to it. We have Rachel Jacobson, the CEO of the Drone Racing League. Rachel, welcome to our 76 Capital Leadership Series.
Wayne, I'm so honored to be on your dance card today. I've been waiting for the big call to join you, and I'm thrilled that I made the cut.
Well, of course, we just had to wait for Lauren to give you a call, make sure to make this all happen. Lauren Goldstein made it all happen from your team. And I got to say, it must be incredible having, such a great person with you on your team. She's a relative of mine. I'm so excited to have, she made this great connection for both of us.
Terrific. We're putting her to work a couple months in, already lining up the key PR opportunities.
Well, you make sure, because her mom and dad will call me if otherwise. So, keep it going, keep it going. Well, we're really excited to have you on our show, Rachel, and make sure that you out there, if you're listening or you're watching, you follow Rachel at Rachel R. Jacobson on Twitter. She's a great follow, and you'll learn about all the incredible things that she's doing, as well as what's happening from a drone racing league perspective. But Rachel, one of the big things that we do on our 76 Capital Leadership Series is we want to learn the story behind the person, behind our guests. We want to hear how you got to become the CEO of the Drone Racing League. And let's go back to the beginning. I know you went to Cornell, but let's go back before college and hear where you grew up and what kind of got you to this point.
Absolutely. So I'm a Jersey girl. Grew up in Monmouth County, New Jersey, was an athlete growing up. So softball, track team. And then really my claim to fame was throwing the javelin. And we'll get to that story in a minute because my dad gets all the credit for that. But really, grew up, loving sports, focused on academics. And when I got into Cornell, I pursued their hotel and business management school. So great program, almost like an undergraduate MBA. And really, when I was at Cornell, I interned at the Monmouth Park racetrack. So my family has been involved with thoroughbred racehorses my whole life. My grandparents owned horses. My parents have been involved. My dad, it's like half of his business as well. And I summered there, and what was supposed to be a publicity internship turned into me just wanting to understand everything that went into running a racetrack. And in turn, when you think about running a racetrack, it's just like running a stadium or any other type of arena. So it really set me up for this could be an interesting career coming out of Cornell. And I interned there actually all 4 summers. So I didn't, kind of shop around. I love what I was doing at Monmouth, and every summer came back and back. And really, it was my senior year at Cornell where I started being laser focused on what was next. And I wanted to do something in sports and entertainment, which is really, a nice fit for my personality. I'm a little bit of an extrovert, which you'll get from this interview. So I didn't quite see myself behind a desk or a screen other than this last year, where clearly you've had to be in front of screens the whole time as the only way to meet people or talk to them. So I wanted to do that and started looking around at, sports, entertainment. And what it came down to was the NBA at the time, David Stern had started a management training program. So he modeled this after Dick Ebersol's PAGE program at NBC. And really what David had in mind was, let me bring on board, 6 to 8 people right out of college. We would train them on all the interrelationships of, a number of different departments at the NBA, and they could move quicker within the organization. So really it was a little bit of like an internship on steroids, where we spent the first year cycling through different departments to, again, just move at a quicker pace because we weren't pigeonholed in one area right out of school. And when I selected this job, it really did come down to, it was Memorial Day weekend. That's when Cornell does their graduation. And at the time, now I feel like companies lock up their candidates much earlier in the year in the fall. But at the time it was like, graduation weekend, and I was waiting to hear back from the NBA, but I also had heard from Disney. So for me, what was really important was working for a company with a global footprint with a visionary leader. And ultimately it came down to David Stern and the NBA program, or Michael Eisner and this Club Disney. And being closer to home, I would say, trumped the Disney opportunity in Burbank. Moving out to California by myself was just not in the cards at that time. And, while I love that organization and all that could have been, I took the MBA route and really moved home and started commuting into the city, right out of school. And who thinks they stay at their first job 21 years? Who also thinks they marry who lived on their floor freshman year at Cornell. And I'm like 2 for 2 there, Wayne.
Well, those are exactly the things that never happen, and you did both. That's incredible, Rachel. It's what a great story, and I have so many things that I could ask you about Monmouth Park and the fact that my God, the world of sports betting, and I know that you at Drone Racing League now have this incredible partnership with Draftkings, and but sports betting, what it now is in the U.S., a lot of it came out of what happened at Monmouth, and so there's history there. But let me just ask you a question about your time at the NBA, because I know a lot of, 21 years, you must have made incredible friendships and worked with so many different people, and a lot of people at the NBA talk about their group that they came in with. Were there certain people that you came in with that year right out of Cornell that stayed with you, that have gone off and done other amazing things, or are still really good friends of yours? I've heard some wild stories around those people.
Yeah, the NBA has this incredible network. It's unbelievable being back in sports, because when I left the NBA in 2017, I left for 2.5 years and did something completely outside of the sports realm, more in the HR tech space, about investing and accelerating women and diverse groups in the workforce, which is another big passion point of mine, in addition to sports in general. But now being back in sports this last year, it is incredible. You're only one phone call away from an ex-NBAer who is running some companies or team or other sports property that you've worked with. Because clearly over the 21 years, while the NBA employee base are very long tenured. This is a group, when you look at who the lieutenants are across the organization, these are people that have been there, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. And I look at when I first started, that at the time, David was, at the helm as commissioner. Adam at the time was there as well. And really, I had such the good fortune from day one of being in that management training program to have access to both of them, who have been so incredibly instrumental, in my career, because who thinks, within their first year that they're going to be in the same boardrooms and hear from these unbelievable, visionary leaders that we've talked about, just how they dealt with crisis management and, challenges along the way. When I think about where the NBA has stepped in traffic, has stood for more than just sports. And really, I was able to take it all in. And, I'm sure the David stories could take up the rest of our time here. But, David was literally like a second father to me in terms of really seeing something to invest in my career. And again, put me out there when it was transitioning from, one area of the business to another. He said, you should be frontline sales. You should be managing P&Ls. This will be so integral when you look at your career trajectory of being able to ask for money, negotiate, and make the sale. And ultimately, that's how I went into sales. I think at the time he looked around too, and as progressive as the NBA was in terms of gender equality, I was still looking at a sea of men across all the other sports properties. And when it went down to, sales or those meetings, I would look around and be, probably the only person there in a pink, purple, or any colored dress in a sea of men. So, David, obviously, beyond his years in terms of being so progressive and focused in those areas.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, we all have such special David Stern stories, and I'm sure you have way more than me. And, it was a real honor to have David speak at our 76 Capital conference in November of 2019. And got the opportunity to interview him at our conference. And when what was amazing about that time, and we had the opportunity, we were investors in other businesses together, but he really kind of zeroed in on some important things that were more important than what was happening on the court, more important that were happening with the business of the NBA, but truly trying to make this world a better place. His relationship and opportunity to meet and Nelson Mandela and what he did with NBA Cares, and those are things that are just he was ahead of the game with all of those things. And now you see how important all of these things are within businesses across, the world today. So what are some of the things that you're doing, in that world today? I mean, now as the CEO of the Drone Racing League, and we'll get into exactly that, but just from a trying to make the world a better place, what are some things that you really care about?
Yeah, well, for me, what's always been important is building culture among the team. And, when I was given the opportunity to come back to sports, because that wasn't necessarily in the cards, I had joined Landit, which interestingly enough, when I left the NBA, I was working for Mark Tatum, the deputy commissioner, and I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And I left the NBA as a free agent and literally showed up 3 months later, working for Mark's wife, Lisa Skeet Tatum, who had started a company that, as I mentioned earlier, was all about helping to invest in women and diverse groups, well before its time. When we think about, the advancements in literally the past several years and the acute focus on making sure, again, women and other groups, it is not homogeneous in boardrooms, in companies. That's where better business is. So I left sports for this 2.5 years. And when you talk about November of 2019, I also was with David. We had gotten together, as you can imagine, he was never, retired. He was doing so much investing and boards and all of that. And we did our, get together every couple months. I'd come meet with him. And he just said to me, obviously I'll support you in whatever you're doing, Rachel, but so much of what he was spending his time on was investing in early stage companies that were all focused on technology and sports. And he said, eventually you will get back to sports. But you just can't go back to sports marketing some sports league or team. Like, I didn't train you to do that. And he really put on my radar that if I did come back to sports, it would have to be something, that wasn't just a traditional stick and ball sports. And even being a mom of 11-year-old twins, I look at sports through this next generation and how they consume it. They're not watching the linear TV for hours to find out who at the end wins the game. They're waking up the next morning and they're seeing a 2-minute highlight trail that takes them through all of their favorite players. So obviously David was more than onto something, but I had that on, my radar. But there was no timeline. I love what I was doing, very successful what Landit was doing. And literally this opportunity presented itself to me, where I sat across the table, and Michelle James from James & Co said, "You're going to be the next president of the Drone Racing League." And I think I tilted my head, and I heard drones and I heard sports property and global, I heard enough to be dangerous, Wayne. And then, I was like, let me go meet with Nick Horbachevsky, who's our founder, actually and CEO. I'm the president. So, we'll keep Nick on his perch as CEO. So I went to meet with Nick, and literally what Nick shared with me was everything he envisioned when he started this property 5 years ago. He felt like there needed to be an outlet for this global sports and entertainment property of drone racing. And literally, this is the next generation of athletes. They're digital gladiators. They train as hard as NBA players. Their heart rates are up when they're flying as much as, Steph Curry and LeBron running down the court. And literally, when I looked at everything they did on NBC, global partnerships, flying drones around the world, I knew that everything they needed that was stage appropriate to take this company to the next level as a mainstream sport. When you talk about being able to now bet on drones and making sure we fly, on certain key time periods, when you think about, the right programming slate on NBC. So, maybe he had me at hello. We don't like to say that, but we'll tell your viewers. But I knew that this was something I could really make an incredible impact on day one. And I went for it. The kicker was that was March 11th when I said yes. It was the last day I was in the city. And that weekend, the world shut down with COVID. And I just did what I always know how to do. My kids are homeschooling. I'm meeting my entire team over Zoom. But we just we did it. We put our head down. We did the work. We've brought on new team members. We've repositioned our sport, in terms of bringing in, new demographics and insights on our fans. And, Wayne, while it has been such a challenging year, and we could go to the heartbreak and the loss in billions for other sports properties, I'm we only know one speed, and it's winning and fast. So we took this year to really, expand in so many areas of our business for the better.
So Rachel, what I'd love to do is to get into what you were describing at the Drone Racing League as to, this opportunity to be able to take the business as president. When you get brought in as president, you don't have an opportunity to even meet your team. It's COVID. We're locked down. It must have been crazy to be able to do that. But let's do one thing before we get into that part of it. Why don't you kind of share with all of our listeners and viewers on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, what is drone racing? What is this all about? And the pilots, the athletes that fly the drones, and just maybe give a little bit of a 2-second kind of history of the league itself, what it's all about, so that people can really realize that and hear what's incredible about the DRL.
Yeah. So the best drone pilots in the world fly in our league. And think of it like every other sport. So our athletes are the drone pilots, and our drones are, the ball when you think about soccer and baseball and what have you. And what we've done is we've assembled a property where we have a championship racing season. So we fly in the most iconic locations. We've been at Hard Rock Stadium. We've been in Europe. So like different countries outside of the US, different stadiums, Chase Field, Allianz, Riviera. So we fly at stadiums and arenas. And like I said, these iconic locations, we take those drone pilots. And again, like any other sport, there's heats that ladder up to finals. And then there's finals that have a point system to ultimately be crowned champion. So we've been in existence 5 years. We're on, air. We're on NBC and NBCSN, as well as Twitter and Facebook Live, and international broadcasts. So you can catch us all over, along with our, social media channels. And we have millions of fans around the world who have, love technology and content and sports and entertainment, and what they're really gravitating towards. And we did a whole white paper on this. When I think about, big opportunities this past year, was we used it to get smarter about our fans. So when I'm talking with marketers, I can tell them, here's our tech setter fan base. Here's what you care about. They're younger, they're innovators, again, tech savvy. And this is the generation that's 100% of your future. So while I love, I'm a fan of sports. I grew up Giants season ticket fan. I worked at the NBA for 21 years. Like, I have pretty much half of the Big Five covered. And then I have my kids. So we're rooting, we're playing for everything. I mean, we were, front row watching the Masters this weekend, and it was great to see golf back. And obviously with the new champion, how much that does when we talk about sports being so global. But what we're finding is, we're a great complement to the other sports. We're not looking to take away market share from the NFL. We get it. You're an NFL fan. You're going to be an NFL fan. They have the scale. They have 100+ years on us. But when, again, we look at this next generation of fans and what people like, because we're definitely multi-generational, while we, index higher under 34 when we look at our fan base. We have this incredible opportunity because our drones, are so much a part of the show. They go 0 to 90 in a second. They have 1,000 lights on one drone. It's this incredible spectacle and show, in addition to it being a sport.
So are there, just again, to get even more granular and sort of basic for everybody, you have pilots who are competing against each other in these heats, right? And then do they play on a specific team, or is it their own brand, or how does that work?
Yeah. So every pilot for themselves. So we have 12 championship pilots that qualify each year. So 12 pilots sit in the cockpit. They're competing one-on-one against the 11 other pilots. And essentially, they compete throughout the season. And again, the points that they earn in each of the different weeks that we fly ladders up to being crowned champion. So again, best pilots in the world, one-on-one against the other competition. And then the other thing I'll share with you is the drones are not for sale. So these are proprietary drones that our engineers hand built. We fly Racer 4s. There's been several generations of racers that DRL flies. And what's different about this company, Wayne, is, when I was at the NBA, and they were very forward thinking about technology and social responsibility and all of that. But the conversations that we have today about aerodynamics and robotics, along with like betting and wireless and all those other energy drinks, you look at the opportunities across what's endemic to our sport on the tech side, like flying an entire season this past year on the cloud. You think about the companies in software, in cloud, in edge computing. I'm able to have this incredibly meaningful conversation because we become a real world case study for them.
So, how does it work? How do you become one of those 12 pilots? I mean, I'm sure there are young people that are listening to this right now saying 12 pilots, they're 12 at the highest level. How do you get there? How do you get to that next level?
I love that you asked that. So we are on 3 platforms, and on Steam, on Xbox, and PlayStation. So how people learn how to fly a drone is you can start on our simulator. It's the most true to life opportunity to learn how to fly a drone. And this isn't Candy Crush, Wayne. This is you put in the time. And like I tell my kids, who, by the way, NBA 2K, Madden fans, all the sports, FIFA, all of that. They play on their Xbox. They don't walk outside and get drafted in those leagues. But you put the DRL sim on, you put the hours in, you 100% can go outside and fly a drone. So like I said, that is our gateway for people becoming drone pilots, is our DRL sim really teaches you all the areas that you need to fly a drone in real life. And then, there's opportunities, obviously. Wayne and I have a friend in common, Mr. Peter Raskin, who lives down the street from me. And then there's also people like Peter goes out, he decides he's going to buy himself a drone, and then he goes out to a field and he starts flying it, obviously, and you start with, numbers of repetition. It's like I tell my kids, what does Steph Curry say about 3 points? That doesn't happen overnight. It's that repetition of practice. And then what we have are online tournaments, in-person tournaments that ultimately you qualify from this feeder system for those 12 seats to fly in the championship.
Wow. So who are some of your most famous, I guess, pilots today that you can talk about? I'm sure you're turning them into personalities in their own right, correct?
Definitely. I mean, just taking a page out of the playbook, when I think about NBA players known on a first name basis, our DRL pilots are known by their handles. So also on a first name basis. So let me talk about Vanover, our 2019 champion. So Vanover was flying planes at probably 14 or 15 years old. And now he flies drones. And he also qualified from one of those feeder programs. So not only is Vanover a championship DRL pilot, he also just cut all the footage because we fly FPV, which is first person view, where you wear the goggles and literally you are controlling the drone as you see the drone flying around. You're doing it for your controls. Vanover just shot the content that's in the new Justin Bieber commercial. And then we have other pilots who, again, cut content because they're content creators too. When you look at all the cinematography, so there's also Johnny FPV that had content that was in the iPhone when they dropped the latest version. So our pilots are absolutely getting tapped to cut this incredible, stunning content that's being used in all types of, ways. And they're definitely their social following is like any other athletes. And they all are very different personalities in terms of their backgrounds, just who are the ones that are more talkative on air, who are the ones a little bit behind the scenes. My daughter loves Vanover. I think she had a crush on him. He's now married. And then my son loves Fluxy. So I have a Fluxy fan. I have a Vanover fan. My mother loves Gab 707. Gab has a PhD. So maybe she likes that he's got, some of this higher education. But they all have something, for everyone, which is what we really enjoy.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It's great to have Rachel Jacobson, the president of the Drone Racing League, on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And Rachel, I noticed you also have professional athletes that are involved, or some former professional athletes. So much so, seeing Chris Bosch on your website. I believe he's there talking about different parts of the business. How have you integrated professional, quote unquote, physical athletes into what you're doing here at DRL?
So great question. So one of the things when I started was I took a look at who do we know flies drones? Who's a drone fan? And how do we bring them into our ecosystem? Because this is definitely high tide raises all boats. So we found out, as I knew, again, from my years in sports, that it's like anything. Athletes want to be entertainers and entertainers want to be athletes. Well, it's the same thing with technology. Now, when you fast forward beyond being entertainers and in Space Jam and different movies, all of these athletes want to be in venture capital. Everybody's investing now. I've got skin in the game and equity, and they've really smartened up to them not only endorsing a product is why shouldn't they also get a greater upside if them being part of the product, there could be an equity stake. So when I got here, I said, oh my God, look at, we know certain players fly, throughout their season with steel cases with their drones inside. And I said, we got to get to these people. And there's opportunities we can have our championship pilots train them, maybe not spend as much time on our sim. But I looked for a natural crossover right off the bat, because for us, when we think about our next, milestone is becoming this mainstream sport, people have to recognize the athletes as part of it. And while our pilots are becoming more well-known, Chris Bosch, NBA champion, NBA All-Star, a dad of 5, who better went to Georgia Tech when you talk about that technology being endemic, who better than to be out there with us promoting STEM programs with our DRL Academy. So, I work really closely with Melanie from our PR team. And I said, these are the people we have to get involved, because they are going to help us accelerate to our goals of putting the spotlight on these incredible programs that we're doing at DRL Academy. I mean, STEM programs, everyone's home during COVID, and we rushed to market curriculum. And now you have Chris Bosch, who I mentioned, dad of 5, went to Georgia Tech. He totally gets it. So if Chris can make STEM cool, that helps everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where it's incredible to see the crossover of today's athletes who are interested in getting involved in business today, interested in being involved in companies that are truly doing the next thing. And as you said, really using, their social capital to help businesses move forward. It is something that we see on our side at 76 Capital. A lot of things that we do with our athlete venture group and how we connect athletes to businesses. It's great to see that you're doing that as well. You mentioned earlier about this idea of that you've had to do all of this at home, obviously, because of COVID. What do you see is next for DRL? I mean, and when is your next season, and how do you see things moving forward as we hopefully are moving, past this world of just having to stay at home? You're now seeing arenas and stadiums allowing more and more people and spectators. How do you see that affecting you and helping you in the future?
Yeah, well, like I said, this weekend, watching the Masters and seeing some other sports, WWE had WrestleMania. So, I mean, that's encouraging. It's very encouraging. More states are allowing NBA fans back. I think NASCAR's got more people coming to events, and that's all positive for us as well. And our goal is to safely get our drones back in real life racing this summer. So our season is in the fall. And we'll be announcing that shortly in the next month or two where we're going to fly this year. But it definitely includes us being in person with drones. Whether we're able to get significant live audiences back sooner rather than later, we 100% see it in the next year as the vaccines are continuing to roll out and people are becoming more comfortable to get back to arenas. So again, for us, it is very positive when we look at what has progressed in the last several months and really what arenas, stadiums, and sports leagues are doing to put process in place that everybody can feel safe. Because I'm dying to bring my children back to anything right now. I'm hoping for the fall we get back to Giants games, and then obviously we'll catch up with our friends at the NBA, and they'll be there with me seeing our first ever in-person drone race as well.
Well, I can't wait for that. Really can't wait for that. And you think about so you have we mentioned briefly earlier about your partnership with Draftkings. As you know, at 76 Capital, we're thrilled that you have a partnership with Draftkings. They recently acquired our company, VSiN, and hopefully there'll be opportunities for VSiN and DRL to work together and have conversation. Maybe we'll create like a DRL sports betting show on VSiN in the future. I keep saying we, even though now it's Draftkings company, but love what Brian Musburger and the team did over there. And maybe there'll be ways for us to do things together there in the future. So tell us a little bit about that partnership and what you really see for the future of betting as well as, on drone racing.
Yeah. So when I started just, tipping you off earlier in the conversation about growing up around the racetrack, I saw betting firsthand when I was very young. It was part of the culture. It was, obviously part of the sport where horse racing had that already in place. But then I saw it firsthand when I was at the NBA, just Adam getting everyone in place to be able to fight for legislation that would allow for, legalized sports betting. So, while I left in 2017, so many of the wheels were already in motion for that approval to come in 2018. So literally before I even started at DRL, I called around to some of my friends that were at the tier 1 operators. And I said, what do you think about betting on drones? And they were like, immediately. So I kind of knew early on this could be something interesting. And then obviously COVID hit and everybody was focused on what are the new sports to bet on and could this be an opportunity for us? Because we had been a post-produced show, we didn't have the opportunity to take live bets. We tried free to play, which was very successful last spring. But then what we put on our roadmap was really, could we partner with a data and integrity company? Could we then get approval in states to have critical mass? And could we do a live to air show? So I don't know if that's close to impossible. I didn't care. I just put it on the roadmap, again, put our heads down, and we went from, okay, we're going to do this, green lit, 51 days later to having everything in place. And our first state, Colorado, approved us as the first aerial sport you could bet on. DraftKings partnership in place. Genius Sports was in place. So 2 incredible partners. And then on January 9th, during the NFL's wildcard weekend, if you flipped over from Tom Brady to NBC, you on January 9th had the first opportunity to ever bet on drones. So it's been great. I mean, we're literally when I think about legalization starting 3 years ago and all the advancements, we're still rounding first base when we think about everything that can be done. And, we forged this partnership with DraftKings. That team is very akin to our thinking. They're progressive, they're forward thinking, they win first. And we loved it. They've been an incredible partner. We did do pre-flight shows to educate people about our sport. So we thought that was really important. And things like free to play, where we didn't want to leave anyone out in 50 states. We had close to 250,000 people over 8 weeks sign up. So now it's, I went from 2 states to 5 states to now 7 states. We just got Michigan. I see New York's on the horizon. So our goal is to continue to rack up more states even before we start racing again in the fall.
Well, that's incredible, and we agree with you. Look, we're 26 states have legalized sports betting now, and only 21 are in operation. So it is, as you said, rounding first. It's so early. So many exciting things to come there. As we start to wind things down here on our 76 Capital Leadership Series with Rachel Jacobson. Again, follow Rachel at Rachel R. Jacobson on Twitter. But tell us sort of what's next. What are some of the next things that you can share with us that we should be keep an eye out for as to with things that you're working on at DRL?
Yeah, so definitely more racing. So one of the things is I want to extend our season. We put up a racing series, our Sim Cup Challenge, first time ever, May through July last year. And I want to be a year-round sport. So there's no reason why beyond our championship racing season that we're not going to be doing other type of Ryder Cup style tournaments. When I think about how global our audience is and other types of, different integrations with programmings with other sports. So for us, because we own our ecosystem, the pilots, the sport, we make the rules, we can break the rules. It really is such fertile ground for us to be able to partner with companies and reimagine, what we should be doing beyond our core racing. And you'll see that with some partnerships that we're going to be announcing in the next several months that are in the works, because companies are definitely looking for what is new and what is different. Like, we don't want to talk to the same demographic. And that's really where, when we came out with the tech setters, is we are opening everyone's eyes, especially in this past year. Companies have had to reevaluate everything in their portfolio. And what they found is duplication. What they found is these 3 properties talk to the exact same demographic. And one of the most important insights that we were able to get out of this research is 70% of our audience does not follow the big 5 stick and ball sports. So Draftkings and T-Mobile and a number of other partners that we work with, using that, you think about Ezra at Draftkings and you think about all of the different partnerships they have. What Ezra really was keyed into on that point is this new audience that love betting, that love speed and innovation. And what can we do with them, even beyond them betting on drones, is we want them part of the DraftKings family. We want them signing up and doing more things on our platform and bringing content, to their social media. So we're really excited about using data and insights to really drive us forward and put stakes in the ground as, again, just a mainstream sport with elite athletes that do the same type of competition that so many do, and is, followed and seen by millions of people through our partnership with NBC that will be announcing the upcoming season schedule and where we're racing and, like I said, new partnerships.
Well, I got to take a guess. I'm sure at somewhere, maybe it's part of your plan, or you've just kind of at the back of your mind, you want to have a drone racing league race someday at Monmouth Park. Is that on the timeline somewhere?
Yes. I mean, I think about horse racing in general, and even, the Kentucky Derby, which is such like the pinnacle of everyone tuning in for that one day. But horse racing needs to tap into a younger generation. And when you look at the juxtaposition of hundreds of years. When you think about horse racing just in general, and even the Kentucky Derby, how many years in the Kentucky Derby's history have we had? There is absolutely a great synergy of us helping the sport get younger and more contemporized, as well as the rich heritage that racing already has. And, I know a few people there, Wayne. So, yes, we have some wheels in motion.
Well, I mean, look, you have, so what is it? The mint julep? Is that the drink of the Kentucky Derby? So like, what would be the drink of the DRL?
Oh my God. I think it's like energy, speed, caffeine, something high voltage for sure.
Well, we got to get, that would be great. You know what? We'll have Peter Raskin do that deal for you or something with the right, with the right sponsor you need. That's how we'll bring this all together, but bring it all back home to Summit, New Jersey, and the University of Maryland, and all the different connections that we have with Peter and the Rubicon team. So hopefully we can all help each other with things like that. I love all the things that you're doing. Congratulations with your success so far. I can't wait for you to be able to come together, I guess, in a physical setting with your whole team. I'm sure that will be an exciting time to do that. And it's amazing what you've been able to do during these times.
Oh, well, thank you, Wayne. And, I've loved spending the time today sharing more about what we've been doing and looking at your backdrop here. I'm going to make sure we may have to fly you over a drone, Wayne, to level up that backdrop back there.
Yeah, it's all, as you said, it's all the stick and ball sports, so, that'd be amazing to add that to the mix. Well, thank you again. It's been amazing having Rachel Jacobson, as our guest on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And again, make sure you follow Rachel at Rachel R. Jacobson on Twitter. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an athlete, you're a business person or just someone who wants to start a company in the sports world, whether it's sports betting, esports, sports tech, or in the sports media industry, reach out to us at 76 Capital. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to hear from you. We want you to be the next Rachel of one of these amazing companies that's doing the next thing in sports. So once again, I'm Wayne Kimmel, and thanks for tuning in for this edition of our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Again, Rachel, thank you, and just go out there and make it happen.
Thank you, Wayne. And we're hiring. So for all those people that are watching this, or like you said, want to be in sports or athletes or make a change, you can find me too.
Again, Rachel R. Jacobson on Twitter. You can find her. Look her up. And again, thanks again. Everyone have a great day.